Excellent. We are recording. Happy Thursday. Welcome to the final office hours for your CERT course, your hybrid CERT course. Congratulations. I'm very excited for you. There's a lot to cover tonight, so we'll be going through a lot of things. We'll go through some things quickly because you'll be able to see them again. Remember, don't worry. And I will be answering your questions. So any questions, shoot them into the Q&A box. All right, and there will be opportunities where I'm going to ask you to answer some things in the chat box, some things in a poll. So we'll try and vary it up just a little bit tonight. All right. Now my mouse isn't working. There we go. All right. So I wanted to be a little festive. Sorry, I didn't have a crown or anything fancy to wear, but I am extremely, extremely proud and excited for you. So congratulations. Well done. It's a huge, huge accomplishment. So now you get to work. All right. So we're going to launch a poll. Casey has it ready for us. So which one of these, and only one is the correct answer, which one of these is not within the scope of CERT training? Nope, wrong poll. Number 10, please. Now we're going through all of them. There we go. Which one of these is not within the scope of CERT training?
Waiting on a few more answers. We'll give them a few more seconds.
Mm-hmm. All right, here we go. So triage is indeed part of your CERT training. So well, good, that's good. Attempting to put out a small fire, remember small being nothing larger than the standard office wastebasket. Performing CPR is the correct answer. Congratulations. 69% of you went for that one. Performing CPR is not a CERT skill. You are more than urged and enthusiastically encouraged to take CPR training separately from CERT. But when you're acting in CERT, chances are you're not going to be performing CPR because you're triaging and then you're treating and you're moving people into categories, or you're trying to do the most, remember the greatest good for the most people, right? Greatest number of people. Splinting a broken arm is definitely within CERT training. Searching a lightly damaged building, also within CERT training. Directing traffic, yes, actually within CERT training. There is a traffic management class in our continuing education, which we offer all the time. So you guys will be able to take that. And all of the above are within CERT, yes, with the exception of CPR. CPR is not technically a CERT skill. So nice job, you guys, doing very well. Get rid of that off of my screen. And we'll get moving. All right. So we're going to review terrorism today with Pat Halloran. Pat has not logged in just yet, or am I mistaken? Casey, have you seen Pat?
Give me 1 second, but we do have a few questions if you want to start off with those.
Certainly.
While I'm searching for him. But someone says, do we need to print out the merit emails for Skills Day, or can you scan our QR codes is the first one?
Very good. So we have 3 classes of people who are in a holding pattern right now, waiting for, they've had all the training that you've just experienced, and now they're waiting for Skills Day. We're waiting for the yellow tier before we can even schedule a Skills Day. So we are still in the process of putting together what Skills Day will look like in a COVID world. A plan that has to be put together so that the command staff for the fire department reviews it, approves it, and then we can move forward. So we're trying to make it as painless as possible for you. So right now, save all of your merits, save all of your certifications, everything that you earn, hold on to it. You should save it regardless. digitally, and then eventually so you can do a hard copy if that's necessary. And then we are putting together what we're going to ask of you prior to Skills Day so you can register, and on Skills Day itself. So relax, we're putting together the whole protocol. You will get information well prior to Skills Day. Okay. Anything else?
Yes, we also have someone saying that do they get a merit for the final exam?
I know that once you've passed the final exam, congratulations, that you get a certificate of accomplishment, which is what is necessary, is going to be a necessity for Skills Day, by the way. So look for that certificate. If you have any issues with Online CERT, you're missing a merit or you're missing a certificate or you're not sure what you're supposed to be receiving, email the folks at Utah and they will take care of it. They're really awesome and they will take care of you.
Okay, and then why don't you tell them about the different CPR First Day Opportunities? Because this question is saying that, their Red Cross also does it if someone's interested, but we also do it as well.
Right. So obviously during the pandemic, obviously a lot of the first aid and CPR require hands-on portions of the training. So in many cases, we've moved it over to a hybrid, much like we're doing our CERT program. We're still in the process of moving ours into a hybrid offering. And as soon as we do, we normally would be offering both CPR and or first aid several times during the year. And so that's one of our projects after we finish with a CERT course. So look for them in the Eventbrite page, our Eventbrite site, which is how you signed up for CERT. And that's where we post any upcoming classes. Last Saturday, for example, I had our first Preparedness class, which is a Spanish version of Get Ready. So that was very exciting that we were able to finally offer that. So now we offer a Get Ready class and a Preparedness class. If you have any friends or family, neighbors who are interested in certain what you've been doing, but they don't have the time or they're not ready to make the commitment to an 8-week course of study, encourage them to take the Get Ready class. We're offering that a few times a year as well. It's easily done over Zoom. It's a basic 2-hour basic preparedness class. So Get Ready in English and Prepárese in Spanish. All right.
And that's the last one that I have.
I'm going to move forward.
But I do not see Pat, but I'll keep an eye out.
Thank you. All right. So we'll hold off until Pat is able to join us. In the meantime, don't worry, I've got plenty to talk about. If I can make my screen move. There. All right, I didn't do this as a poll, so I'm going to encourage you to jump onto the chat box and briefly tell me what you would do if you came across signs that look like this somewhere. If you were assigned to go to a building or a home or a vehicle in front of a building and had one of these types of stickers on it, what would you do? I'm jumping in here to look at the chat box. Yes, walk away, avoid, nothing with anything higher than a 0. Correct, yes. Technically, for CERT, anything that looks like a DOT, Department of Transportation sticker like these is a stop sign for CERT. So you would back off and call it in, report it to your command post, okay? But CERTs do not go into a building that have DOT stickers on them.
Sorry about that, Sandra. I muted myself and I forgot to unmute, but yes, glad you caught it.
I did, no worries.
Okay.
All right. So let's talk about communications. The number one thing that falls apart in any emergency is communications, right? And we as CERT members can really help with keeping the flow of communications as smooth as possible. Not easy, but as smooth as possible, right? So if you recall the video CERT in action where there was a storm and then the dad and the mom, checked out the house, made sure the kids were okay, and the dad is a CERT member, so he then as we would understand it, was activated, and he reported to his neighborhood meetup place, and his other neighbors who were CERT members also joined him there. You remember that video, yes? Okay, so that location at the park became their command post, right, for the neighborhood. And then communications is, it's not going to be fancy at the beginning, right? It's going to be whatever you can. If it's a piece of paper, great. But your phone, your cell phone, obviously, pen, paper, smoke signals, whatever works for you. But when all else fails, radios are fantastic modes of communication, and we use them quite effectively and very often in CERT. Right? As I covered last week in terms of activation, at your skills day, if you are within our cities of Belmont, Foster City, and San Mateo, you're going to receive a copy of our program's standard operating procedures, which includes the activation procedure. Under what circumstances and how do we activate? If you are from another city and you're going to be connecting with that city's CERT program, you want to make sure you find out what their activation procedure is, because that can vary from area to area, program to program. All right, and reminder that we activate under certain circumstances. So for example, first responders need additional assets, and it is within the scope of our training. So we do not self-activate, and an activation can come days after the incident, right? We want you to make sure you are okay, your family's okay, your home's okay, before you even respond to an activation, right? All right, so let's talk a little bit more about communications. Intra-team, within the team, even if there's only 3 of you, it's very, very important to maintain good lines of communication. Everyone on the team is an important component. Even though you're going to pick a team leader and you're going to pick a scribe and you're going to pick a communications person, you have those 3 roles. But for example, if you come across a moderately damaged building and you guys are not sure whether to go in or not, if one of you does not feel comfortable saying, no, that's moderately damaged, we don't go in there, guys, then the team does not go in. You do not leave somebody out and say, well, you just wait here and we'll go in. No. The team makes the assessment, right? Does the size up, makes the plan, decides how to move forward as a team. So here's a little bit about how it would look like, okay? So top row would be field teams, CERT teams out in the field, and they would be communicating with FRS radios, walkie-talkies, family radio service type of thing, to their division post, right? And at the division post, if we're lucky, there will be some ham radio operators, amateur radio operators who are licensed to operate their radios, and they would be the lines of communication up the chain to the EOC, for example, okay? The EOC is coordinating information to and from everyone, and they're the center of operations, and they're also making sure that everybody has what they need and prioritizing based on the information they're receiving from everyone, okay? Law, fire, medical, also coordinating with county dispatch, but we are mostly coordinating with our, obviously, neighborhood post, neighborhood division post, and then up to the EOC for our area, okay? In our case, the EOC could be in either Belmont, Foster City, or San Mateo, and that just depends on where the incident occurred and which location is safest for us to open an emergency operations center. So communications, again, can be very simple. Notepad and paper, a runner, go. You have a young kid who offers to help, make him or her a runner, go. Landline telephone, if that's what you've got. Cell phone, obviously, satellite phones, two-way radios. There's a lot of different ways of communication. But what is going to actually be functioning in a disaster is what you have to think about. Now, obviously, cell phones are ubiquitous. You find them everywhere. Everyone knows how to use them. They have the ability to take pictures even and send pictures to make things more, visible and understandable to people. But it requires a lot of bandwidth. It requires, the towers and everything working. What if in an earthquake, towers fell? Or there's a power outage and the towers, have run out of juice, or a fire has burned them. So bandwidth is going to be down to 0 very quickly, not to mention that everybody in the area is going to be calling everybody else in the area. Remember the out-of-state contact and the importance of a long-distance contact? That's what one of those is. All right, so they also prioritize cell phone traffic for professional responders in an emergency. So again, cell phones are not going to be your front line of communications. All right, so two-way radio communication transmits and receives, okay? And they work on frequencies and channels, and we'll discuss very, very quickly. And I'm going to go fast, don't worry, because you're going to get to work on these and play with them on Skills Day. And you'll understand, it'll all make sense because it's one of those things that just works better when you've had some hands-on experience with them, okay? So this one is an example of an FRS radio, family radio service, something that you can have at home. It's very easy. You do not need a license to operate them. They're like walkie-talkies. And they operate in a limited area, 1 to 2 miles, preferably flat topography, what they call line of sight. So there's nothing really in the way. So you don't want to be inside of a building. You want to be outside. But it does work very well for intra-team and from the team to the neighborhood division post or command post communications. All right, it is only handheld. You can't put a different antenna on it like you can on some other radios. So it does have limited range, but they are very effective in a neighborhood. And we actually have FRS radio, what we call nets, some of the neighborhoods. The CERTs get together once a week on a given time, on a given channel, on their FRS radios, check in, just make sure the equipment is working, they know how to work it. It's very good. They are moderately priced and they're easy to use. I see that Pat's joined us. Pat, do you want to jump in now? You have to unmute yourself, or do I have, Casey, can you make him a co-host so he can?
He should be a panelist, so he should be able to speak.
Depends on what link he used.
Okay, let's try that. Pat, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Do you hear me?
Yeah. Yep, you're on.
All right, so I'm going to stop sharing, Pat, and then you can share yours, and we're jumping a little bit around here, folks, but Pat's here, so thank you, and we'll talk and review terrorism with him. Any questions on that, by all means, bring them up, and then we'll talk a little bit more about communications, okay? And we'll answer your questions too. We'll talk about Skills Day. It's all coming up. All right, Pat, all yours.
Okay, and you'll have to excuse me. I apologize. I had, can you see that?
I cannot.
Okay, hang on. I had this in my Outlook as 7 o'clock, which is why I'm rushing.
I'm sorry. Okay, I can keep going if you want me to.
Yeah, for some reason I'm having a little problem getting my screen up, so.
Okay, I'm jumping back on.
And Sandra, before you jump back in, we actually have another question.
Absolutely.
So this person's asking if they will be receiving a full copy of all the material they've covered eventually. I think that what they're referring to is the hard copy. So if you want to speak to that.
So the hard copy of, so you have all the materials that we offer that we would normally give you if you were in a classroom with us. You have all of that on the home base page. So that way you don't have to print everything. You only print those things that are of interest or that you want to take another look at. But everything, all the forums, all the videos, all the reference material is in the home base page. You can also go back and review anything you want in your online CERT, which is very helpful as well. And then, so I'm just making sure I'm covering what I think the question is asking. Then, oh, by the way.
Okay, go. You can go.
I'm sorry. Yes, I just thought of something. I am behind by a week on the YouTube channel. So You know that if you've missed or want to review anything on the office hours, they are posted on the San Mateo Consolidated Fire Department's YouTube channel. So for example, if you want to go back and review Triage, that's class 4, which was done on March 4th, Triage, March 4th. And if you go to the YouTube channel, you type in San Mateo Consolidated Fire Department and type in Triage, it should pop up. So the hybrid CERT classes, these office hours are all posted there. Last week's office hours is not yet posted. My fault, my bad. It's been an interesting week, but I'm catching up. So it will be there eventually. I got the study guide up. I was very pleased. But so I will be posting last week's office hours and this week's office hours sometime in the next few days. And you can go back and review and check anything that you like with those.
Yeah, and then Sandra, I'll add on to that of saying that this person, I clarified that you had mentioned that if you were in class, you would have received a hard copy.
Correct.
And what they're asking now is, will they still have access to the home base after the class ends?
Yes, you will. I would hurry, but we're in the process also separately of updating our San Mateo Consolidated website. Eventually it's going to transfer over. It should be seamless and you should have everything that you had before. So it should be there for you for quite some time. But if there's something in particular that you want, I'd pull it off now just for fun.
And then we had another one that says, should we email the necessary documents we had to fill out, or do we bring them to Skills Day? So just to repeat this one, because I know it's come up in other classes as well.
It's going to come up again. So don't worry. Hold on to everything. Hold on to everything digitally. You don't have to print anything out yet. We are in the process of organizing Skills Day, and we're trying to make it as smooth as we can. We're going to determine how that's going to work, the whole choreography. And likely we will ask you to email us certain things in order for you to register for Skills Day, because you have to have completed everything in the rose colored box in order to attend a Skills Day. So we'll email everyone at the same time with the steps to take in order to register for Skills Day. But first of all, you want to make sure you've completed everything, both online CERT as well as everything in the essential documents for us as well. Okay, so keep that in mind. Hold on to everything. Don't email me anything yet. You'll be given instructions.
And one last one, sorry, Sandra, they're coming in, we'll move on. But how do we know if we're missing anything?
Okay, this is where you have to do a little bit of homework. First of all, it's very obvious with online CERT which units you've completed. And you have to complete the final exam. You don't get access to the final exam until you've finished all the units before it, okay? Once you've finished all the units, the final exam option will open up to you. Take the final exam, pass the final exam, and then you're going to get a certificate of accomplishment. Excellent, keep that, keep that. Then that proves that you've finished everything. Then check the rose-colored box. Did you fill out the DSW, or do you have it ready to go? The hold harmless, the 315.A class through FEMA. That's an online class that you need to take and complete. There's a certificate that you get at the end of that. Make sure you have that. And if you are under 18, then you need to have your parental permission form as well. Okay. It seems like a lot, but it's all there. It's all laid out, and you'll know.
And that's the last one I see for right now. So
all right.
Forge on ahead.
I'm forging. All right. So if I can find my cursor again, there we go. So ham radio, you may have heard of ham radio. It's amateur radio. It does require a license from the FCC, and it's very self-sufficient. It's amateur. People do not get paid to be ham radio operators. We have quite a few CERT members who are ham radio operators, and they are a reliable and fantastic source of communication for us. And in any case, in any type of emergency. It's also a fun hobby. A lot of people do it for fun, but in terms of emergency communications, can't beat it. In fact, when Puerto Rico was hit by 2 hurricanes, I think within a month of one another, and the whole island of Puerto Rico was out of power and out of communications. There was not even professional communications on the island. The ARRL, or American Radio Relay League, for the first time ever, put together a team of 50 professional high-end ham radio operators who went down there and set up a communication system via ham radio throughout the whole island. Again, no electricity, no internet, nothing like that. And they were able to be the communications for Puerto Rico for the whole month, at least, until they were able to start getting a few of their professional lines up again. So it is a remarkable thing that ham radio seems like old technology, but it's very reliable. Okay, so like I said, reliable, and they're using it. They even use it on the space shuttle. Believe it or not, a lot of our astronauts on the International Space Station, I should say, are ham radio operators. It does require a license, so there is a test involved. You can't use it for business. Like I said, operators are not paid. It can be a bit complicated, but like anything else, it's a language. You have to use it in order to learn it. All right. So the basic radio, the basic FRS radio, for example, that we use within our teams and that you will get to play with on Skills Day, it's very simple. The important thing is that you're on the right channel. Usually before you leave the division post, your team is assigned, you're given a radio and any other equipment. And we'll talk about forms and things later, but this is one of the pieces of equipment you might check out from the division post. Okay. Important parts to remember is, okay, make sure everybody's on the same channel. And this little button on the side, it says PTT on it, or push to talk. So in order to talk on this radio, you must push the button and keep it depressed while you're speaking, and then let go in order for someone to answer you. If you're holding it down the whole time, you're talking and no one's answering you because they cannot talk to you while the button is depressed. You must let go. Okay, that's why it's important that communications be very brief and planned in advance, which we will talk about some more. Another common mistake that people make is talking this way into the microphone. You want to talk across the microphone. So don't cover your face with it. Put it to the side and speak this way. You want the antenna facing directly up. And sometimes if you're not getting good reception, it's a matter of just moving a couple of inches almost, or getting to a little bit higher ground in order to improve the reception. Okay, I covered a few of these things. Don't yell, speak in a normal tone of voice, speak slower than you normally speak, and then speak even more slowly. We'll talk about why in just a moment. Also, sometimes people will pop these onto their collar, for example, or into a bag, which is a mistake because if something hits and depresses the button by accident, you've just knocked out the communications for your entire team. Okay, nobody can communicate with you and nobody can communicate back. So make sure that the button is free and no one's touching it unless they are actually speaking. We'll talk about what messages we send in a moment, but these are the types of things that, sometimes you would be transmitting, what you're talking about, what you're seeing, what you're experiencing, certainly your location. These are important things. Staying in touch. It seems cumbersome sometimes, but you must stay in touch with your command post. They should know at all times where their team is, what their team is about to do, so that if they're not in communication, all of a sudden, they know where to start looking. Messages need to be written down in advance. That's why they're brief, because like all communications, on your cell phone, sometimes you miss every other word or something. They may ask you to repeat something, right? So you want to repeat precisely what you said, not what you think you said. So write things down before you transmit and use the terminology that you've learned in CERT so that everybody's speaking the same language. Okay. So message traffic. Traffic on the radio is messages, information, right? Anybody talking is dispensing with traffic, okay? And most messages have three parts: an opening, the actual message, and closing, which is over, meaning that you're finished with your main, what you wanted to convey, okay? So this is a close-up of a 214. This is probably the most common form that you would be using in CERT for any documentation. This is your diary of everything that you do, including, if you are the communications person on your team, any communications that you send on the radio. So it's nice to have it written down, all right? So it doesn't have to be long, nice, brief, straight to the point. And then you can be conversational but short in your conveying of the message, okay? Remember that on the other end, over at the command post, there's somebody writing down everything you say. So imagine having to copy down everything someone says if they're talking like I am right now and I'm telling them all kinds of information. And by the way, no, brief, slow, to the point. All right. So imagine that you were sent out to a home and this is what you found, or you were passing by and you saw this kind of damage to a home. You'd want to convey that to the command post, all right? So now you add that to your 214. You write the time of day that you passed, and we use military time, the address, etc. And again, brief, but very specific, right? As to what you noticed of a particular home or building. Okay, I want you to look at this message and think to yourself, now you've got to convey what you're seeing to the command post. What is the crucial parts of this message that should go to the command post? So read it over and think about what you would write down on your 214 and what you would be conveying via the radio. All right, here we go. Here is the important parts of that message. The parts that are bolded, by the way. All right. The command post needs to know fire. That's important. They need to know there is a fire. People are inside. You know this because people are screaming. All right. They need to know the address. Something additional, an additional hazard, smell of gas. And you have 7 people with first-degree burns. Okay. That is what the command post needs to know. The fact that there's a woman begging for you to help her save her baby, that is something you're dealing with. It is not something a command post can deal with. They need to know that this is a priority and why. And that fire, smell of gas, and people already with first-degree burns, those are major, and that bumps it up in priority. But giving them more information does not help move things up on the priority list. Okay, here is what you would write in your 214. Again, brief, right? But the highlights, pick the highlights. So write your message down, what you're going to say before you even hit the button. All right. Listen first, because maybe another team is in the process of passing a message to the command post. You don't want to interrupt that. You want to make sure that it's clear. Transmit. So usually people, if you hit the button and talk at the same time, you might be cutting off the first word or two. So usually hit the button and hold it for a second and then transmit. And then let go, of course, so you can hear the answer. You'll hear the term call sign. So when we're talking on the radio, we are not using our names. We're using a call sign. You might be CERT Team 4 or Team B or Team Bravo, right? And that is given to you when you receive the radio at the command post. Here's the radio, you are Team Bravo, and that way they'll track you as Team Bravo. And on your 214 at the top, it's your unit log. You'll write down the names of everybody on your team, the positions that they have, team leader, scribe, communications, ham radio. If they are a ham radio operator, what is their call sign? But the unit will have its own call sign, and that's the call sign you're going to be using on the FRS radios. You're not going to be saying, hey, this is Sandra. No, this is Team Bravo, and then your location and so on. And then, yes, same thing, wait a second, let go of the transmit button. All right. Wait for acknowledgement before you talk. So you're going to ask, it's like you're asking permission. Hello, this is, Team 4. And they'll acknowledge, go ahead, Team 4. Did I mention speak slowly? All right. Okay. Yes, you may have to repeat messages. So that's why you write it down first. Okay. So let's say you came across this as a team. All right, take a look here. So in your 214, you'd be entering the time, the address, and heavy damage, right? So now we're going to actually talk on the radio. I'm listening, making sure that command is not speaking to somebody else. Nobody's talking right now. Hit the button. CERT command, Team 4. I let go. And now I'm waiting. And they'll respond. Team 4, go ahead. Hit the button. Wait a beat. Team 4 at 2005 Porsche's Street. Heavy damage. Over. Let go so they can answer. They respond. Copy. 205 Porsche Street. Heavy damage. CERT command over. Did they get it right? Nope, they didn't. So you've got to correct them. CERT command. Negative. I repeat. 2005 Porsche Street. Heavy damage. Team 4 over. Team 4 copy. 2005 Porsche Street. Heavy damage. CERT command over. CERT command. Affirmative. Team 4 over. So it's slow. It seems cumbersome, but in an emergency, that is really, really effective. It's important not to talk over one another. That's why you're listening. That's why you're waiting that one beat after you push the button, and then you wait, you release the buttons so that they can talk to you. Okay. So at this point, you've passed the message. You've sent your traffic. And then command may say, okay, Team 4, proceed to another address or block off a street or whatever else that they may need doing. And they'll send you to another mission. All right. So keep it brief. Remember, there's some poor person on the other end who's trying to write everything down as you're saying it. So please be slow and pause between sentences, if you will. If you have more than 1 or 2 sentences, and it shouldn't be longer than really 2 sentences, have a pause, and when you release the button, in case they have a question or they needed you to repeat something. All right. Imagine writing it as you are saying it, and that will keep you on point as far as speed. Okay. Common mistakes, obviously. All right. Net control operator. The net control operator is the person who is the main ham radio operator usually, or radio operator who's taking in and communicating with your team. So they're net control. They may be called command or control. Again, you will be told everybody's tactical call signs at the time that you're given your radio and at the time that your team is deployed out to a mission. All right.
So that's a perfect segue for a question we got. Are there any particular channels or frequencies we need to know for CERT?
Not at the moment, but when you receive your standard operating procedures, and in that you will receive your activation procedure and protocol, that includes the primary frequencies for ham radio that we use, right? So that's one of the ways that we could activate in an emergency if channels and cell phones and internet and things were down. I could turn on my ham radio because I'm a licensed operator, and I could send a message out to each city based on their primary frequencies. In each of the neighborhoods that have FRS radios and use them regularly, I know Foster City each has a specific channel for each specific neighborhood. So everybody who gets them usually will know what those channels are. Okay. This is the phonetic alphabet because sometimes, things sound weird on the radio and it's not clear and you may have to spell it out. So for example, my call sign given to me from the FCC for ham radio specifically is KM6MYW. But when I introduce myself, I say Kilo Mike 6 Mike Yankee Whiskey. That's my call sign. Okay. Again, it's a language, and you will get used to it, and you will learn how to use it. But often you'll hear, police and fire, if they're giving out a license plate number or a driver's license number, they'll use the phonetic alphabet, so it's easier to understand and it's clear and no mistakes are made. All right. Forms. A lot of these forms you've seen on the home base page. All of these forms are also available on our CERT page, our main CERT page. There's a CERT documents button. You've been using the new students button, but if you come over to the other side, there's a CERT documents button. All these forms are there, okay? So the forms that I would ideally like you to have in your CERT backpack are mainly the 214 and the neighborhood damage assessment, because these are the first things you're going to be using if you were deployed, if you were activated, and you were leaving your house and walking on the way to the park where your neighborhood meets. And as you're passing each address, you can write down address, no damage, address, light damage, address, possible gas leak, and so on, so that by the time you've arrived to the park, to the meeting place, you have actual information to give them, and that way they can prioritize again which are the issues that need attention first. So this is 214, the unit log. Up here at the top where it says name, there's a whole list. You would have all the people in your team. If there's 3 of you, one would be the team leader, one would be the radio operator, and one would be the scribe. And then here is your personal diary. What time you checked in, that you signed in, what equipment you may have checked out, what mission you've been given, what tactical call sign your team's been given, all those things, you write it all down, okay? This message form, this is used at the division post. So these are the types of things that we have in the trailer or that we have in bins, so that when neighborhoods set up a division post or a command post, they have the paperwork there. But if this paperwork isn't there, it doesn't mean you don't fill it out. You start on a pad of paper. That's why everybody should have pad of paper and pen always in their bag, no matter what. This is the neighborhood damage summary. I know this is also on the home base page. This is what it looks like. You'd write down the addresses as you're passing them by and any hazards or anything that you notice. If you were checking out any equipment, such as a radio, a shovel, rope, whatever it may be, you will check it out. And this is the resource page that the checkout, staff would be filling out to ensure we know who has what. Inventory. There's a lot of forms. Remember, there's a lot of documentation. I don't need you to have all of these in your bag. 214, neighborhood damage assessment, that's all I need you to have in your bag once you get your bag, right? Okay, any questions here?
Let's give them a second, but I don't see anything right now.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and take a break and let you guys review with Pat the terrorism portion. Okay, Pat, I've stopped sharing, so it's all yours.
Hey, Casey
Yeah.
or Sandra, can you turn back the screen share back on?
That would be on your end, Pat.
Okay.
You should have an option to screen share.
Yeah,
Is it telling you don't?
it's telling me I don't.
Sandra, can you make him a co-host then? That might help
I
this.
think that's what I need to do. Let's see. Make co-host. All right, Pat, try it now.
Okay. Okay.
Success.
Oh, good. We're here. Hi. You can't see me because apparently the video is not working for me. But let me see here.
It might work now that you're a co-host. Yep, there you go.
That's much better. So first of all, my name is Pat Halloran. I'm one of the emergency services specialists. I work with Sandra and Casey. Formerly, I had a career in law enforcement with the Belmont Police Department, and now I'm working for fire. And apologize for the mix-up in the meeting tonight, but I've been doing Zoom meetings since 8:30 this morning, so I'm a little rattled. Anyway, we're here to cover terrorism, the terrorism module, which is the last module on CERT. And before I start, I wanted to see, does anybody have any questions from the material you covered online?
And
Okay.
keeping an eye on the Q&A, so I'll let you know and interrupt
Okay.
you if there's good opportunity.
I'm not going to redo the module, but I'm going to focus on some local items that would be of interest and how this terrorism module focuses, connects to all the training you've had. So our area has not been without some terrorist type incidents. Now, when you think of terrorism, you typically think of the World Trade Center bombing and things like that. The more common terrorist type incident that people will be involved in is either a workplace violence incident or an incident at a public venue, such as the shopping center in Boulder, Colorado, where we recently had a shooting incident, or something like that. So in our own county, we've had some incidents that fall into this classification. If you remember back in 2018, which seems like a long time ago at this point, a young lady whose picture appears on the screen here to the right appeared at on April 3rd, appeared at the headquarters of YouTube, which is headquartered in San Bruno, and came in through an exterior parking garage and opened fire on some employees with a 9mm handgun. She wounded 3 people, one of them critically, before killing herself. She had a YouTube video account and felt that YouTube was preventing her from making money on it. So basically she was mad at YouTube, and she decided to get revenge. So she drove up here all the way from Southern California, and actually had been contacted by law enforcement sleeping in her car on the way up here. Unfortunately, when they interviewed her, she seemed perfectly rational. They even went so far as to contact her family while they were talking to her at her car, and they had no inkling that they didn't know she had a gun. They didn't know she was coming up to do this. And because she was not exhibiting any signs of being mentally ill to the officers when they were talking to her, and she wasn't committing an arrestable offense, they had to let her go. And subsequently, she ended up at YouTube. Interestingly enough, some things that happened at YouTube, when the emergency happened and the shooting happened, somebody pulled the fire alarm, which you would think would be a good thing because it would alert people. The problem is what it's alerting them to is a fire, not a shooter. Uh, in fact, the San Bruno Fire Department responded to YouTube on a fire alarm driving into an active shooter situation that they didn't realize was happening initially, which is not a safe thing for to happen with the firefighters. So San Mateo County law enforcement responded, and we were able to take care of the situation. One of the interesting things that comes up is what could CERT have done to in this situation? Well, you don't respond to this as a CERT member, but if you happen to be there, your CERT training could come into play. There was a individual who had been wounded and came out the front doors and was met by one of the responding police officers who happened to be carrying a tactical first aid kit with him, and put a trauma bandage on the individual's bullet wound. The officer then turned to a bystander and told him to keep pressure on that wound until the paramedics followed behind him. And then the officer went on into the building. That citizen helped save that individual's life by taking over that first aid. So knowing first aid, stopping bleeding, things like that that you learn in CERT are very important and could come in handy in a situation like this. Another example, I'm going back farther in time, 2009, we had a San Mateo High School student who was going to Hillsdale High School in San Mateo, set off some bombs in the hallway. He had been a student at the school and had left school, was upset, and came back, I think about a year later after he'd last been on campus. No one was injured and he was taken into custody, but these are events that have actually happened in our area. And then going even back farther, we had a young man in Belmont that was making explosives in his bedroom and taking them to school on Samtrans because the explosives made him feel safe and powerful. They were able to figure out who he was, and we ended up taking him into custody. At the time he was taken into custody on the way to his house, he had one of the pipe bombs in his pocket. So all of these incidences, for example, the young man who had the bombs, if someone had seen something suspicious, if they had called us, we might have been able to do something proactively. Thankfully, he didn't get a chance to hurt anyone with the explosives. In the case of the YouTube shooter, there might have been clues missed with friends or family that she was intending on going to YouTube. And the same with the young man at Hillsdale High School. There might have been something that somebody saw and at the time didn't make sense to them, but could have been helpful. So you've heard this since, the early 2000s. If you see something, say something. And people ask, what is suspicious activity? And what I've told them in my career in law enforcement is, if you see something or hear something and you have to ask your question, I wonder if I should call the police, the answer is yes. Because it is not your job to determine the validity of what you're hearing. If it bothers you and you think something's wrong, it's better to call it in, have law enforcement check it out. And if there's nothing going on and there's no problem, no harm, no foul. We would rather get called out for something that turned out to be nothing than having that opportunity go by and where we miss something that we could have used. So like I said, CERT does not respond to terrorist incidents. That's a law enforcement first responder function. But it is possible that you could be at the scene of an incident and be able to help. Again, this is the example of the YouTube shooter where The police officer put the dressing on, but it was a bystander that held it in place until the medics arrived. Several victims of the Boston Marathon bombing several years ago were aided by non-first responders before the help could get there. And if you'll remember from our discussion several weeks ago about who are first responders, and I gave the example of the Miracle on the Hudson, the US Airways flight that landed in New York on the water. You see, even if you call immediately, it takes a while for first responders to get rolling and to get there to help. So if you're on scene, you're the nearest help that might be available for several minutes. So one of the things that we've started teaching is this idea of what would you do if you were in that building? If you were in, say, that supermarket in Boulder, Colorado, and you started hearing what you believe to be gunshots. So the three actions that we recommend you take are in the order that we recommend you take them. First off is run. If you can, like for example, I know personally that in the Safeway in Belmont, if you go all the way to the back through the employee area into their stock room, the doors leading out to an exit door are at the back of that wall. So if I heard gunfire in Safeway and I was shopping, I would head through the store away from the gunfire and try and get out that back door. Now, if you're not in a place that you're familiar with, if you can try and get out, if you see an exit and it's not going to put you in more danger to get to it, in other words, you're not going to have to run at the suspect to get to the door. First thing you should do is run, get out of there, and then call 911 and report the incident, but get yourself away from the threat. If you can't get away from the threat, then we recommend you hide if escape is not possible. And that would be, if you're in an office building, lock yourself in your office, turn off the lights, stay quiet. We have found with active shooter, violent intruder type situations, most of them have made a plan. They know the location. They've probably been associated with the location in some fashion, either as a former student, former employee, something like that. But we've also found that generally when they come across locked doors, they don't force doors open. All of the shooters that we've had that we have documentation on came into a building, would come down a hallway, would try a door. If it didn't open, they go on to the next door. Unless there was something that drew them into that door for some reason. So if you're going to hide somewhere that you can secure it, maybe barricade a door, and get as quiet as you can. Silence your cell phones so that it's not ringing, and then wait for first responders to come and get you out. And then the last option is fighting. And this is a very personal decision. As you saw in the Run, Hide, Fight video that came with the module online, this is a personal choice, and not everybody is up to doing this. If you are, realize that you're in a fight for your life, and that there can't be any hesitated moves on this type of situation. One of my favorite improvised weapons for something like this would be a fire extinguisher. So if I had someone that was coming in and I could get to a fire extinguisher, spray the subject in the face to disorient them, realizing that they will probably be able to fight through the getting distracted and the powder in their face and everything else, but it will give you a split second. And then if you're going to do this, you have to then take on the suspect. And all these are personal choices. For me personally, I would spray them with the fire extinguisher, then I would hit them with the fire extinguisher. And but these are all decisions you have to think about ahead of time. Some people say, I'm not emotionally or mentally able to fight like that. First off, you'd be surprised what you can do when your life is in danger. but it is a definite personal choice, and nobody can tell you whether you should or shouldn't fight. It's a personal decision. So moving on. What we will do as first responders, this tactics have changed over the years. Originally going way back in time to a shooting at a McDonald's down in San Diego, I believe was in the early 80s. At that time, it was the philosophy was if there was a gunman in a building, you would surround it, wait for SWAT, and then SWAT teams would make the approach. We found with the active shooter situations like the situation in Boulder, Colorado the other day, if you wait, people are going to die. And so the first officers on scene will form up, preferably in a 3 to 4 person rapid entry team. And if they hear gunfire, they will go in and go to neutralize the suspect. Now that means they will pass injured people, and they will, people wanting them to help them and render aid. They will pass injured people. They will pass people that are down, because their job is to go neutralize the threat. Because until they do that, people will continue to get hurt. So as additional officers, deputies arrive at the scene, they will arrive, and the fire department will also arrive with paramedics. Now, in the past, what we did was waited until the scene was secure, and then we would bring fire in to treat the injured. Again, we've learned from experience that if we wait, people die. So this has evolved with time. Now, in present day San Mateo County, every fire engine and piece of fire apparatus carries bulletproof vests and ballistic helmets for the crew in case a shooting situation happens. So in a scenario like the Boulder, Colorado market shooting, first officers on scene would form up a team. They would go in to neutralize the suspect. As they move through the building, they secure areas, and they know that the suspect is not behind them. He or she is somewhere in front of them. So then second team of officers with fire personnel will come in, and the officers in that team, their job is to protect the paramedics and the firefighters. And then the firefighters and paramedics will start treating the wounded. And that has found to save a lot of lives. So you can see in the pictures on the screen, the lower right picture, you'll see there's an officer in front, followed by subjects wearing red vests, and they're firefighters. But they're also wearing ballistic helmets, because a standard fire helmet is not designed to be in any kind of a gunfire situation. And these pictures were taken from training exercises that we have held. So, moving on. So CERT has actually helped out in these training exercises. This was a training exercise that was held in 2019 at Mills High School over the summer in July. The school was closed for the summer. And we had CERT members and other volunteers played the wounded, and they were done in injury makeup, which is called moulage. At some point in your CERT journey, you will hear the term moulage. And what moulage is basically simulated wounds and injuries. So in this picture, the gentleman it's in the lower left corner that made it to that was Gary's 15 seconds of fame on the Channel 7 News, was playing a victim. That's one of our SMC Fire CERT members. His wife, Carrie, is in the lower right picture. She's being led out by rescuers as playing another victim. And in the upper right corner is Cindy, and she's playing another victim that's being aided by, it looks like a Pacifica police officer. So this exercise went over an entire week, and we put every police officer and every fire crew in San Mateo County through this exercise. So they got a chance of working together. And in a situation like this, you're going to get a mix of agencies. You'll get Burlingame, Belmont, San Mateo, the sheriff's office, police departments. You'll get, all the different fire agencies. So we learn to train together so that we can respond together in a real incident. The lady in the upper left picture is Karen, who's with our CERT program. And Karen is a moulage artist. She puts the blood and simulated wounds on other people. But it was a good training exercise. And it's also a good exercise if you can be a victim. Anytime you can play a victim, it teaches you a lot. If you're supposed to be an injured person like Cindy was in the upper right corner, she would be given instructions ahead of time that says, all right, you've been shot in your right leg. You can't move it. You're semi-conscious, which means you won't be able to answer questions clearly. So when the police officers and firefighters come up to deal with Cindy, she is going to be playing that role of an injured person. Well, if they pick her up incorrectly to put her on a gurney, she'll be the first one to know it. And that helps you with your aiding of someone later on, because you now know what happens when you pick someone up wrong. So if you can play victim in any of these exercises, it's a great experience, and I strongly encourage it. So to kind of wrap this up, one of the things we started dealing with, unfortunately, we've had to evolve this over the years as incidents have happened, that we teach in the schools a philosophy called the Big Five. So what law enforcement, the school officials, and first responders got together and said, what were the 5 events that we need to worry about? And where this comes from is originally when this type of incident started happening, you've all heard about a lockdown at a school. We basically only had the ability to tell schools to lock down because that's all we'd ever trained them to do. Well, we had an incident in Belmont where we were chasing some bad guys. They happened to be burglars, and they were running over backyard fences and heading for a school. So our dispatch called the school, and the only training we'd ever been given was they needed to lock them down. So we told the school, lock down. And the reason we wanted to do that is we were about to chase bad guys potentially through their campus. And we didn't want kids out on the parking lot and in the playground that the bad guys would run into. Well, what we actually wanted the school to do was just bring the kids inside and shut the doors. But we had no way of telling them that quickly. So the only training word we had was the lockdown. Well, that caused a little anxiety on the part of the school because they thought that there was an assault on the school of some kind of an armed suspect. So as a result, we developed these other levels that we can use in a school. And if you have children in any school in San Mateo County, they will be taught this procedure. So starting at the top, we have shelter in place. And there's something going on outside where we need them to shelter in place. An example would be if your school was near a wooded area and there was a fire nearby in the wooded area and there were airborne contaminants or smoke. If we tell them to shelter in place, they bring the kids inside, close the windows, shut the air vents, and go on with their day as normal. They're going to just be inside, sheltered in place. Unfortunately, with COVID, we have a lot of experience with the phrase shelter in place. So the next one down is drop, cover, and hold on. That's our basic earthquake instruction for everybody. It's if you feel the earthquake hitting, drop to the floor, cover yourself, get under a heavy table or some other protective object, and hold on to protect yourself from flying debris. Then the next level down is secure campus. Now that is a potential threat like the burglars we were chasing in the surrounding community. They bring all the kids inside, they lock all the exterior doors so that the bad guys, their only choice is to run through the campus because there's nowhere for them to hide. And it keeps the kids safe, and all the staff and students remain inside until we tell them that they can release the secure campus status. They can continue teaching, they continue doing whatever they want to do. They just lock all the exterior doors. Then there is that one we originally came up with, which was lockdown barricade. That means that there's an immediate threat to the occupants of the building, such as a active shooter on campus. And that is where they bring the kids into whatever rooms they can get them into. So if it's passing period, they wouldn't go to their next class unless it was right there. They would go to the nearest room. The teacher would get everybody inside. They'd lock down, barricade the doors, close all the drapes, shut the lights off. And our kids in this county actually train and practice those drills. And then the last is evacuation, which is we need to get you off campus, and we would take everybody off campus. The schools have already designated designated locations where they'll evacuate to. When the incident at Hillsdale High School happened, they evacuated the entire Hillsdale High School staff, faculty, and students to a middle school up the street where they had a pre-designated evacuation area. Now, this was all originally designed for the schools. But then we realized that this could be easily applied to the business community, because what do businesses call their office areas? Their campuses. Facebook has a campus in Menlo Park. Oracle has a campus in Redwood City. So the terms don't even have to be changed. Secure campus, you've secured the business campus. All of these 5 can apply to a building in a business situation. And what's good about that is that the kids learn it in school, they learn this procedure, and as they grow up, their parents learn it with them because they need to know what's going on with their kids' school. But then if an incident happens at the parents' work, the parents can use the same terminology, they'll hear the same things, and the procedures are all the same. So it's one system that can carry through from schools to businesses to unfortunately, other parts of life. So, that was my last slide. So if anybody, I kind of went through that quickly, but if anybody has any questions, I'm more than willing to answer any questions. If you think I missed something. This was designed as a supplement to the module, not a replacement for it.
Yeah, Pat, we actually did get one question in. So this person's saying, in San Mateo County, no officer goes it alone or even in twos in a terrorist active shooter scenario?
It'll depend. So the ideal is if there's an active shooter, report of shots fired inside a building like that, ideally, you want a team of at least 3, if not 4 officers. And the officers are taught how to do searches in that group so that they can enter rooms safely. But depending on the situation, if you were somewhere, say, in a more rural part of the county, say you're a deputy on the coast, and it's you and a highway patrol officer, and you're the only law enforcement there for several minutes, and you're hearing active shots, 2 officers may decide to go in, and they would tell their, on the radio what they're doing and where they're going, but they may go in twos. We don't recommend it. We definitely don't recommend single officers going in by themselves. But the YouTube shooting, as an example, officers started responding from all over the county to YouTube as soon as the active shooter call came out. San Bruno PD got the 911 call. They started dispatching officers. They notified the county. The county put a broadcast out to all officers in the county. And you had officers from Belmont, Burlingame, South San Francisco, Redwood City responding to YouTube. And as officers got there, they went into the building. And when they located the suspect, she had already shot herself, which in a lot of cases, that's what happens. The person ends up ending their own life. But this is a time we've learned over time that these incidents develop quickly, and any wasted time can mean lives. So ideally, single or 2 officers wouldn't go in, but if they have to, they will.
Okay, well, here's a great opportunity, folks, because you've got Pat, you've got Casey, and you got myself. Pretty much the entire OES team is here. So if there's any question that comes up, in regards to anything that you learned during your 8 weeks or anything that's been rattling around in your brain, don't hesitate to ask. We have a few more minutes yet. Pat, thank you so much. That's always been a great part of the presentation, because it's important to realize that we are part of making sure that what doesn't look normal should be alerted.
Yep.
Now, let me just continue on, but if you have any questions, put it in the Q&A box. Casey will let me know. But like I said, you've got a great bunch of resources here right now to answer your questions. So,
And Sandra, before, but is Pat hanging around, just so I can keep an
I'm
eye?
right here.
Okay.
I'm right here.
I just didn't know if you were hanging around for the rest of the presentation in case there's something specific for Pat.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay, thank you.
You bet. So this is not the end of hybrid CERT. This is just the beginning of your adventure as a CERT member. And of course, we have to go through Skills Day, which will be a terrific experience for all of us. It always is. And this is just some examples of previous trainings and things, because we have something called continuing education, CE training, for our CERTs. Normally, you would not have access to this ongoing training. But because we live in unusual circumstances right now, we have decided to extend this to those of you who have completed your training. Okay, I'm just showing you some pictures of other skills days and other trainings that we've had. See here the folks on the radio, and here they're practicing with a mannequin on how to properly lift and work together as a team. So in order for you to participate, I have no way of knowing precisely when we will have a skills day. I'm just feeling pretty optimistic that we're moving through the tiers pretty quickly right now, so hopefully soon. But we have at least one CE training per month. And if you would like to be eligible for that, even before you complete your training on a skills day, just finish these items and email to this address your certificate of achievement. Okay, let us know that you've completed Online CERT and that you've completed your 315.A, and then you will be given I'm leaving this up so you can either write it down or take a picture of it. You'll be entered in our database. So our CERT database is called NEON. You'll be hearing that a lot. So we'll enter you in NEON as what's called a level 3 CERT member. And this will be a temporary situation until you complete your skills day. Once we get through skills days, if you choose not to, or you haven't done all that, then you'll be taken off. But for right now, we are extending our CE classes to our CERT members who are waiting for skills day. As a CERT person who is a student who has not finished your training yet, you are not eligible for any activations. So, for example, I have an activation tomorrow. We've activated our CERTs for something that I can't really share the details with, except to let you know that it's okay. There's nothing urgent happening. It is an informational activation. But unfortunately, many of our CERTs that are like yourself in a holding pattern have offered to help, and they cannot. So I cannot activate non-fully trained CERT people. Okay. So once you've...
Sandra?
Yes.
I actually have 2 questions that came in. So someone's asking, was it the YouTube incident that started the fire departments using bulletproof equipment? So maybe Pat can chime in on that one. Or if you know, Sandra?
I do.
That's a Pat question.
Yeah. And actually, no, it was not YouTube. They already had those issued to them prior to YouTube. I can't remember. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago that they started issuing them. It started changing when we changed the tactics on how we did first aid responses to those calls. Previous to that, fire would set up a triage area outside of the building, and the victims would be brought out to them. And like I said, that would wait until the building had been secured. The tactics now are that as soon as areas are cleared and secure, then fire personnel, medics with an armed escort will enter, and it's considered safe enough for them to do that, but it's not considered safe. So we wouldn't let somebody in there without an armed escort. because there are the possibilities of more than one suspect or the suspect doubling back somehow on the original search teams, which is why the officers with those paramedics and firefighters, their job is to guard the paramedics and firefighters.
So remember how we talked about in CERT that, while the CERT motto is doing the greatest good for the greatest number, the number one priority in CERT is you and your safety. So if your team is outside deciding whether or not to proceed, what the action should be, and taking everything into consideration, if you don't have the right tools to deal with a particular item, event, situation, then you don't have the tools to deal with it. Deal with what you have the tools to deal with. Sometimes you have to be imaginative as to what those tools are. But in the case of police and fire, they're training this way now so that now fire has the tools to go in sooner with police and working together as a team because they trained that way. And that's the same with CERT. We train a certain way, and that's our procedure because your safety is our priority. Okay, so if you've completed your online CERT and you got your certificate of accomplishment because you finished the final exam, then make sure you put this in the subject line. So online CERT certificate with your last name, and make sure that in the body of the email, we have all of this information. Okay. So take a picture of that if you need to. I'll come back.
All right, Sandy, we got a few more. So it's going to be
yes.
different topics though. So one of them is CERT team of at least 3. Is that a national standard or local?
That is a local standard. And again, you check with your program and find out what it's always going to be a minimum of 2. No CERT program will do less than 2. We do 3. We found that 3 is the most effective.
And then another one that came in was, can those of us from other cities attend the CE classes? Our city certs are still on hold. We are extending that to everyone. Once you've completed our hybrid CERT program with the final exam and the 315A, then yes, we will extend that to you temporarily until Skills Day, but so however long that may be, by all means. Okay. And even if you're not in our cities, you are welcome to attend our Skills Day once we have it, and then you'll take your certificate of completion to your city, to your CERT program. Okay, perfect. And then someone's asking, where do you sign up for the CE classes?
So when we get all that information from you, we'll create an account for you, a level 3 CERT account for you in our database called Neon. You will receive an email notifying you that an account has been made for you in Neon and how to go about getting into it. And then you can start looking at our calendar and signing up for anything that is open for registration, except an activation. You are not eligible for an activation. Okay.
And then one last one that came in is reiterating from before, but if you pass the final exam but never received a certificate, you should contact the Utah group, correct? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right, so that's the last one for
So
now.
absolutely, please save all your merits, save all your certificates, save everything digitally, hard copy, whatever works for you. And again, once we are able to set up a Skills Day, we will notify you of the next steps that you need to take. All right. So what's next for you? Because right now, right, you're in a holding pattern for which we can't help, but you guys have done a fantastic job so far. When we do have Skills Day, and if you are from one of our cities, you'll receive a basic backpack with basic tools in them. And then eventually you can build up to something like what Heyman showed us, was it last week? Weeks are blurring together. So if you are not with our cities, then on Skills Day, we'll give you a loaner backpack to use on that day. So don't worry, okay? But all of you, I don't care where you are, what city you're in, if you're in San Mateo County, all of you as CERT need to register now, if you haven't done so already, with SMC Alert. You should be receiving alerts on your phones, and in the profile, you have an option for CERT trained. Go ahead and check that off because you are. All right, and we know you're going to be finishing soon. But in the meantime, while you're on hold, what do you focus on? Personal preparedness. You, your home, your family. Make sure you are in a good, comfortable state of readiness. Okay, you want to make sure you have a home emergency kit. You want to have a go bag, one for each person and or pet in your home. Make sure it's, a backpack. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. You don't have to go out and buy anything fancy. You probably have most everything already, but a duffel bag, a backpack, there's no rules here. Whatever you feel comfortable to put your go bag into, right? Identify hazards and assets in your home, work, school, anywhere that you tend to hang out the most. All right. And you should be growing in your situational awareness, right? Always have 2 ways out. 2 ways out of every room, 2 ways out of every house or building, 2 ways out of your neighborhood, right? Because primary routes may be blocked. Okay. Keep half a tank of gas in the car. This is a tough one for my husband. Am I talking out of school? Yeah, half a tank is the rule for the fire department, by the way. We do not let any of our vehicles get below a half a tank of gas, then we have to refill them up. So you're always ready to go. You don't want to have to stop at the corner gas station if you have to evacuate your neighborhood. That's not going to be realistic. Charging cords. They're not terribly expensive. You always are going to need one. Throw them in every bag and every kit that you've got. Trash bags. Casey will remind me. Trash bags, always important. Always helpful. Extra masks. These days we're going to need masks all the time. Did you put a pair of shoes and a working flashlight by your bed yet? Right? That's easy. That's an easy one. You can do that tonight. Have you established an out-of-state contact? Someone that the whole family knows to call if something happens locally and we can't reach each other because the bandwidth on the cell phones aren't working, but we can make a long distance call out of the area, out of state, make sure everyone in the family knows who that person is and that person knows they are your out of state contact. Okay. Extra water, store extra water. Rotate it out. When you buy another case, reuse the old case, put the new case into the storage area that you want to keep. All right. Big question, when is Skills Day? I don't have an answer, but we are working our way very well into eventually the yellow tier. Once San Mateo County gets into the yellow tier, we are able to schedule 1, maybe 2 skills days. And I have to get all kinds of approval. The plan is being organized right now. It should be done very soon. We have to get that approved by our command staff in the fire department. Then I have to ask the city for permission to use facilities for our skills day. It's crazy. A lot of moving parts to make a skills day happen. And a lot of our CERT volunteers are working on that for you right now. So I'm very excited. We have 3 groups of people like yourselves in this holding pattern right now. Not all of them will have completed everything by the time the first skills day is announced. So you want to have everything ready to go because then you can register for a skills day. We will have a limited number of people because of COVID protocols. We'll have a limited number of students that we can have in each skills day. That's what we're going to try to schedule 2 as quickly as possible while we're still in the yellow tier. You are going to get an email with the details of what to turn in and how to turn those in so that you can register for skills day. Don't worry. If you don't get into the first skills day, you probably get into the next one, okay? It's going to fill up fast because people have been waiting a long time. Some folks have been waiting since February of March of 2020. Because that class got interrupted. It was a regular in-person class and their class was interrupted. So since March of 2020, the fall and your class are all in a holding pattern, but not everybody's completed everything. So now is the time to make sure to clean everything up, go back and make up anything you haven't made up. And like I said, I'm gonna post last week's office hours on the YouTube channel, as well as this one right now, So you'll have all of them to go back and review anything you want to review, or if you missed anything, you can do that again. Okay. And important, I will schedule a review of the whole thing to prep you for Skills Day in advance of Skills Day. There will be a review day prior to every Skills Day. Okay, and that'll be on Zoom. So you know what to expect and you'll be ready. All right. I want to thank you and Casey and Pat and all of our terrific CERT volunteers, trainers who've come through during these 8 weeks. It really, really is a great thing to have all of you with us. It does increase our culture of preparedness in our cities, makes us a stronger community, and I hope you've enjoyed so far, because the best is yet to come. There's a lot more to do and a lot more going on. So it takes a lot of people to do it, and now you'll be part of that terrific group of people. The University of Utah and California OES did a huge lift in making online CERT available to us. Otherwise, hybrid CERT could not exist. So we're very happy that we've been able to train, like I said, 3 groups of people even throughout this pandemic, and get you ready so that you're almost completely trained, and we'll have you trained much sooner than I expected. I'm very excited that we're moving in the right direction. And that's because you guys are doing the right thing, right? We're using our masks, we're keeping our physical distance as difficult as it is, we're washing our hands, we're staying hydrated, we're staying as healthy as we can, and we're helping each other do that. And that's going to improve our odds of getting into the yellow, eventually the green tier. So any questions right now?
Yes.
As we wrap up?
So we have a good one, so I have to kind of reword it so it makes sense. But so for someone who lives in another area but works here, is there a role for those kinds of people in our activities with SMC Fire CERT? Or should they work, or should they go to their local one?
Okay. As you know, CERT is a national program, but I always say its heart is at the neighborhood level. We have neighborhood leaders. We try to have our neighborhoods be active at least once a quarter in some training or activity, even if it's just a bonding, go for a picnic together, just so that you get to know your neighbors who are also CERT members. You know whose strengths and weaknesses and what your strengths are and what you bring to the team. Makes it a lot easier to work together with people that at least you're familiar with, right? So that's why it's important to be active in your neighborhood and at your CERT program in your city. But if you live or work in any of our cities and wish to train with us, if you work in Belmont, Foster City, or San Mateo, but live elsewhere, you are very welcome to join us as well. But I highly, highly, highly encourage you to get in touch with your local CERT program as well. You can do both. You can pick one, but please know your local CERT program.
So we just got one that's a kudos, basically. So thank you. So thank you for all the helpful information that you've shared over the past 8 weeks. And thank you, Pat, for sharing tips from your law enforcement experience and knowledge. And then another thank you to all of us, Sandra, Casey, and Pat, for your dedication to the program and sharing your knowledge. So I wanted to read this out loud because as someone who's helped facilitate, Sandra and Pat, you've done an amazing job these past 8 weeks. I know it's been a challenge on Zoom. So thank you for all the kinks and bearing with us with audio challenges, etc. So thank you guys.
All right, you guys have done a rocking job. You know what you have to do now. Don't worry, it will get done. You've got time, get it done, and you'll be able to join us for our CE classes, and of course then be all ready to go when Skills Day comes along. With that, good night, thank you, and I can't wait to see you in person. All right, be well.